Hi everyone, I'm Laura. Welcome to my channel or back to my channel. I am here with an update on masculine and feminine energy, and I haven't done these updates in a while. The last video I was just looking was in February of 2024. And that one was on forgiveness. That wasn't even an update. So the last update was January of 2024, the Pluto in Aquarius, full moon in Leo video. If you haven't seen it, you might want to check it out, although it's very old. It has valuable information that talks about this collapse that's happening, where we are kind of collapsing the old world, the old systems, and the old structures. And a year ago, that was already in effect. But fast forward to now, and we can really truly see that we are in the middle of this really crazy time where the world is simultaneously falling apart and then also being restructured at the same time. And so masculine and feminine energy are kind of like working together to do that. And I talked about in the last video how the masculine has been deconstructing. He has been taking apart everything that is no longer working, while the feminine is starting to build new. And I said in that last video that, the feminine isn't necessarily the builder, right? She's more of the visionary. So what's happening is the feminine is envisioning a brighter future. She's holding the frequency for a ascended earth, so to speak. And many of you may be playing this out in connections that you have. So it may be soul connections that you're working through this, and you may be a core feminine and you're more in that holding space of the new, while you have a masculine counterpart who's working through the old. But I also like to remind people that we're actually all doing both, because we all have both masculine and feminine energy within us. So you may find that your masculine energy is deconstructing, while your feminine energy is seeing visions and having dreams and hopes of what can be, of what we are all collectively co-creating here on this planet right now. And so I read for both energies, and you can apply it to your own life, or you can apply it to a relationship that you're in. And I've pulled some cards for the masculine, and I've pulled some cards for the feminine. Now, first, I just want to talk a little bit about what's going on with this new moon that we just went through. We just had this Cancer new moon. This one was intense. I don't know how you guys experienced it. You might want to put it in the comments and share. I love hearing other people's stories. I talked with a few of my friends during this Cancer moon, and we felt it. I mean, it was unbelievably intense. I felt so much like lower energy that was coming up to be purged. And some of you may have had like things in your life where you could actually pinpoint what was going on. And the Cancer energy is very much related to like the home. For me, I personally experienced it with like childhood inner child wounds that were coming up. So old things like that. And then I also had like this kind of like dark cloud type energy just come over me. And that had no meaning. So a lot of you may be experiencing that, where you just feel this heaviness, and it's like this collective heaviness, and you don't know where it's coming from, and there's nothing really like specific in your life that you can tie it to, but it's like the collective dismantling that's happening of the old earth and the old timelines too. So a lot of you that follow my channel here, you are old souls. And so you've had many lifetimes, and you've had lifetimes in a lot of these really kind of distorted timelines that need to be collapsed. And they are collapsing. And we're seeing a lot of just kind of like chaos in the world and a lot of conflict. And that is because a lot of these timelines are coming to the surface to be healed and processed and released. And like I said before, it's the masculine energy that does the deconstructing And masculine energy is very physical. It's very solid. It's very much like, tangible things, while feminine energy is more, inner world. And so those of you that are core feminines, you may be feeling kind of all of this chaos that's being deconstructed in the current timeline, and also the past timelines that are coming up to be processed, and you're feeling it in your emotional space. So you might be not like fighting with people and having like direct conflicts, but you may be feeling a lot of emotions and just this unraveling is what I'm hearing. It's like an unraveling that's happening in the emotional space. Masculine energy is still stuck in kind of like external world conflict, because that's where the ego is, right? The ego needs to prove itself, and it proves itself through external conflicts and competition and difficulties with like communication breakdowns and rivalry, things like this, just all of that that's like happening in a physical sense. Let's take a look at the masculine cards to get a little bit of a better idea of what's happening with masculine energy. The first card that I picked for the masculine is Druid, hold the space. So with this card, I'm feeling that masculine energy is getting to this place, like we have people on this planet who are ascending, and people who are embodying, men for the most part, right, that are embodying this kind of ancient wisdom of the masculine, where we really haven't seen that for a while. A lot of the masculine energy that's been on the world stage and that has been in the public eye has been a bit toxic and not very much connected to the inner light, more connected to thriving in a material world sense. Again, back to that kind of like competition and all of that stuff. Very focused on getting material world needs met. And now what we're seeing is this rise of kind of this more reflective masculine, self-aware masculine, more again connected to the spiritual realm. But a lot of people will say like, well, where is that masculine? I'm looking for him, I can't find him. Well, I think that a lot of the people that embody this type of masculine energy are still in this kind of like hermit space, because that's what I feel when I look at this card. The Druid is kind of like the hermit card in traditional tarot, and so the masculine is in this place of processing. A lot of the masculines that hold the codes for the divine masculine energy, they played roles that were possibly very destructive in ancient timelines. And so there is a lot of kind of like breakdown, ego death happening as we see a lot of the chaos in the world erupt, because a lot of these older soul masculines were connected to that, the conflicts that led to that chaos. And most of them now are just playing this out in their relationships. So a lot of the masculines that are grounding this type of energy aren't really on the world stage that much. Some of them are. As I'm hearing that. Wait, no, some of them are. But a lot of them aren't. A lot of them are even the ones that are on the world stage, or in the public eye, or are playing a leadership role in their communities, they are dealing with like inner circle, inner family, friends and family type conflicts, more so than like fighting another tribe or another country or something like that. So it's more personal. And that actually allows them to connect more to their heart space. Because like if you're having a conflict with another country, that's totally different than having a conflict with your lover or your spouse or your parent, right? Because it requires some emotional connection and some emotional intelligence to navigate that, because you can't just like label them as like the enemy and the bad guy. So that was this is the next card that I got for the masculine. It's the Lady card. Enjoy growth and reap rewards. This is, for me, is always the divine feminine card. I feel that this is speaking of that integration of divine feminine energy within the masculine. And I also feel that there are a lot of masculines that are seeking that divine feminine energy. They're wanting that in their life. They're desiring that. And this third card here shows that their hearts are opening, right? Love and let yourself be loved. So there's a lot of feeling and desiring something more than material world success or recognition in the masculine energy right now. And so it's not just happening with male people, right? For those of us that are core feminines, we all have this inner masculine energy, and you may notice that your kind of like drive and your desire to like compete and succeed and achieve, that may be getting overshadowed by your heart now. It's like the heart's actually going to be leading and not the head. And you know, the logic and the reason and the ego really is being dissolved by the heart space, which is coming through, and it's trying to lead the way now, which is really actually what we need in order to build a earth that is more heart-centered and soul-centered, just in general. And so that's going to be happening with all of our masculine energy. I also pulled the Three of Pentacles here. There's a woman on here that is creating. I do feel that this is coming through, that it's really important to tap into your creative energy. If you have the ability to express yourself in a creative way, it's definitely something that you will want to do, because, you know, the whole AI thing and the takeover of like robots, that is a timeline. That is a possible timeline that we can go down. It's not really a timeline that is ideal. I wouldn't say that it is the highest timeline. And for those of us that are way showers and star seeds, and we came here for a purpose, we often have very creative gifts and creative abilities that we are here to express and share with the world, so that we kind of shift the trajectory away from this kind of tech-centered reality and bring it back to like the humanness. And so that requires a strengthening of masculine energy, because, you know, creative energy, it does come initially from the feminine, because she is the visionary, but for it to actually be represented in the physical realm, the masculine has to come in and support the feminine, and has to bring the creative energy to fruition by doing. And that's by practicing a skill, mastering it, doing things over and over again. Something that I don't actually like doing, because I'm such a core feminine. I hate routine. I hate having to do the same thing over and over again. But that's the type of energy that we need to bring these creative projects to fruition. We also have the Chariot card here. This is pushing through any sort of fears, any sort of doubts, second guessing yourself, feeling like you're not good enough, feeling like you cannot actually share your gifts or your purpose here with the world. Those actually just, I'm seeing it's like a stampede of horses, and they're just like trampling over all of those blockages and those fears. Now, with this Cancer new moon that we just had, with all that kind of like gunk that came to the surface, and I mentioned that for a lot of people it was like family related stuff, or inner child wounds, those need to come up, and those need to be like pushed through and processed. It's actually kind of like a very forceful energy that I'm feeling from the masculine side. of like, usually it's like, oh, okay, let me reason with these fears. Let me just like look at them and process them and process them and sit with them. And this is more of like, no more. This is like some strong masculine energy that's like, I'm not even going to entertain the fears and doubts anymore. And all that kind of karmic gunk and old stuff and old stories of who I was or childhood wounds, those are getting like trampled over. Which is kind of nice because we need that. And it came with the Knight of Wands. So the Knight of Wands, if you're familiar with tarot, is I love the Knight of Wands energy, right? The Knight of Wands can be a little bit of like a player in romantic relationships. I be aware of that for those of you that are dealing with this in connections, in relationships, because it's kind of like that, like romantic, like I'm coming in full power, but I'm not really at the king level. But I'm also feeling this in a really positive way where it's like this Knight of Wands has a lot of willpower. The Knight of Wands gets stuff done. And so that is that type of energy. And so whether you are a man or a woman, you're going to want to tap into that right now. Especially, this summer energy. This is such a great time in the Northern Hemisphere here to tap into like getting things done and getting yourself out there. This is the time where we express. Winter is the time where we go within and we process. Summer and spring is kind of like the birthing, and then summer is when we really put ourselves out there and we show up fully in the world. No more hiding, no more playing safe. So yeah, that's what's going on with the masculine. Let's take a look at the feminine. The first card for the feminine is the Medicine Mother. Honor your inner knowing. Okay, yeah. Ooh, I feel this one strongly. I need this one. It's definitely tapping into your intuitive wisdom. That is the power of the feminine, right? That is her superpower. That she is extremely wise and she is extremely connected to source. So her wisdom isn't necessarily coming from books and schools and reading things, right? She's not like regurgitating knowledge that's already been out there. She's downloading new wisdom that is coming directly from the source. And so this is really important. Also, if you're dealing with a soul connection, if you're dealing with like past people from your past lives, you really want to tap into knowing the truth of those connections because you know it. You know it in your heart, especially if you're core feminine. And so you want to hold that knowing because that knowing is really powerful during this collapse. The world is constantly trying to tell you who you are and who you need to be and what you should believe. But it's our higher self and our connection to source that has the true knowing of our true authenticity. So we also then, for the feminine, I think these came out together. The Magic Guardian and the Stargazer. Set your sights higher. I love this magic card came out because we really need to tap into our manifestation abilities right now, because with the collapse of the old world and all the chaos that's going on, you want to hold a higher frequency and vibration. Again, masculine energy is all about like dismantling in the real world. And that is very like caught up in like, again, like the tangible real world things, where feminine energy is more of this kind of like floating above the earth type energy. She's not really phased with like the step-by-step process. She's not concerned with the routines that I told you that the masculine energy needs to focus on right now. The feminine is like in the sky, imagining a beautiful world. I'm actually hearing, what's the song by John Lennon? Imagine, that song. Maybe I'll even put the lyrics to it beneath here. But I'm hearing like, let your imagination go wild and set your sights higher. So, if you've been limiting your feminine to only kind of believing in like, oh, okay, what's actually practical and possible right now in the physical world reality? let that go, because that's going to limit you to this old world, and that old world is being taken apart, meticulously dismantled, I heard. And so you really want to rise above that and not get caught up in that. For some of you, that may mean like tapping out of social media, tapping out of like getting news and all that stuff. Give your feminine a chance to relax. Now, if you're going to go into your masculine and you want to like process things logically, you can do that for a little bit, but make sure that you're giving your feminine the space to breathe and to envision a higher, better reality. And then we've got wait for important information. I also feel that, again, another superpower of the feminine is patience, right? If we think of like a gestating fetus that eventually becomes a baby, like the mother just knows, right? She doesn't, of course we have all the technology now where you can like go in and even like see a 3D picture of the baby. But before all of that, the woman just connected directly to the fetus and knew. You can also then tap into like spirit babies on the other side, right? The feminine is able to go between realms, and she has this inner knowing, and she has this superpower of patience. And so that's what we need right now from the feminine, is just kind of like this inner knowing, this trust, this belief, and this imagination of a better world, and better possibilities, and belief in the masculine is what I just heard. If you're dealing with like a soul connection, and you are kind of like looking at the masculine and you're like, what is going on, right? Because they're in hermit mode and they haven't really pushed past the fears yet. Be that belief in a higher power coming in and pushing the masculine forward. But again, it's not about, it's like an active waiting. That's really important to keep in mind, right? It's not this like damsel in distress needing to be saved. It's like knowing that the masculine is going to step up. And for some of us, it may just be our own masculine energy that's stepping up as well. So definitely keep that in mind. Let's take a look at some of the other cards here. We've got the Two of Pentacles. The feminine is being pulled between the two worlds. For some of you, it may be even being pulled between two different people, two different jobs, two living locations. Sit in that right now. Sit in the discomfort of not knowing where you're going to land. That's really uncomfortable. But if you're really tapped into your feminine energy, that unknowing, that place of kind of like, I don't know what's going to happen, gets way more comfortable when you're in your feminine. And then we've got the Four of Swords. Again, it's like this waiting energy. I always think she's like blowing bubbles or something. I don't know what she's doing. I don't know. If anybody else has this deck, you can let me know. Maybe she's smelling lavender, actually. Oh, that's so interesting, because I have a lavender plant in my garden, and for some reason I was feeling like I should do a video of like getting a little bit of the lavender, and I should have put it on my Instagram reels, and I didn't do it. So yeah, if you have lavender, that might be something that you want to have around you right now. Just like any sort of kind of beautiful scents, and like smelling roses too, flowers, the beauty, bringing the beauty back to the world, because like when we see like this dismantling, it's like death and destruction, right? And it's like rubble and chaos. And so we want, like, I'm seeing like a rose like coming up out of like the crack in the concrete, that type of energy. So tap into that beautiful aesthetic energy, and for a lot of us it's going to be like a sensory experience with like aromatherapy. And then strength. Feminine is strong, because the feminine doesn't actually she doesn't like force or change things through like external energy. It's through her like energetic power and her knowing. And that takes a lot of strength in this world, because this world is always trying to tell you that, like, to move forward or be successful, like, you have to actually do something to make a change. And this change is coming from like a shift in consciousness. So again, I know it can get a little bit confusing, because it's like, on one hand I'm saying like, don't do anything at all, and then the other hand I'm saying start practicing and get a routine. It's both. It's like both energies simultaneously. And so when you are tapping into both your masculine and your feminine, keep in mind what is your core energy. And the core energy is where you're going to want to spend most of your time. And then you're going to want to switch over to the other energy and experiment with that as well, just so that you have strength with both sides. I've said before in other videos, it's kind of like if you're a right-handed person and you just kind of want to cross that threshold in your brain and strengthen your ability, your cognitive abilities, then you might, try some exercises with your left hand. Well, that's exactly what we have to do with our energy, right? We want to cross that meridian, and we want to go to the other side and start just like tapping into that and strengthening that a little bit. But you want to honor your core energy. That is so important. If you know you're a core feminine or you're core masculine, you're going to want to gravitate towards activities or being more in the feminine sense. It's more of like being and knowing and tapping into that inner space and that inner world. You want to go to either side, either one of those, depending on what energy is your core energy. So I think that's it for now. I will be back. I will be doing more videos. I really love your feedback and your comments. If you want to share anything in the comments here, I'd love to hear how you guys are doing, because I haven't really heard from anybody in a while, because it's been over a year. And I'll be here again with another video. Not sure when, but it's gonna be before a year. I'm hoping it actually within this month. And you can also follow me on Instagram. I'm on Twitter or X, whatever you call it. I'm there now also. And I'll be sharing more of my music, so you can follow my music channel too on Instagram or here on YouTube. And yeah, I'm sending you guys so much love. Take care.